Hello, and thank you for watching Ask Ron, where Ron answers our Gold Club members' questions each and every week. My name is Adel. How are you doing today, Ron?
I am outstanding. Beautiful weather here in Jacksonville, Florida.
Yes, sir. If you have any questions and you'd like to ask Ron, make sure you're a Gold Club member. You can go to ronsgoldclub.com. Our first question is from Lucky. Hello, Mr. Ron. I hope you're doing well. When I lease option a property from a seller using utility LLCD as the lease, should future payments to the seller come from LLCD's bank account or the LLCC keeper?
Lucky, LLCD does not have a bank account. Doesn't need one. It's never going to take in money or pay out money. If you've got a house with a tenant buyer in it, the money should go in and out of LLCC, even though D is on the lease agreement. A simple note from you to the tenant buyer to tell them where to send the money is all you need.
Next question, Tony and Angie. When it comes to profit from your deals, how do you decide whether to deploy that money as a private lender versus using it to control properties yourself?
All right, well, between you and I, making money with your money as a private lender doesn't give me a high enough yield to make me want to do it. I can do so much better by just using it to buy real estate with. For example, what if I find a junker I want to close on? Now I got the money to go ahead and close on it, take my time selling it, getting the best price for it. Never hurts you to have cash laying around. There's so many things you can do with it to get a much higher yield. Stock market, you easily get a higher yield than that in the stock market. I mean, easily with a little bit of studying on your part. Sometimes the yields are going to really blow you away. And then, act as a safe investor, or you can act as one would take a risk to get a higher gain. You're going to have to decide that, but you can buy mutual funds and get a fixed gain rather than, you get a fixed gain with private lending. But think about it. I used to loan money out, other people's money, at 15% interest. Okay, and I got 5 points and 3 months interest prepayment penalty. Now you might say, okay, that's 15 plus 5, that's 20 points, that's 23%. It is, but that's only if it pays off at the end of 1 year, because when you get into the second year, you can't count all those goodies, you can only get the interest. Well, and the prepayment penalty. Either way, I'd rather you do private money than let it sit in a bank account, but as a skilled real estate investor, as I know you are, we can find plenty of places to put that money to get you a much higher yield. Think about when you make a down payment. Let's say you get a pretty house from a seller and you need $3,000 in closing costs, and maybe the seller wants $5,000, okay? If I put out that $8,000, I'm going to get it right back within the next 30 days, probably going to get a $15,000, $20,000 non-refundable deposit. That's a great use for cash. Put the cash out, but get the cash back. Not true with you do private lending. It's going to be out there for however long you're willing to leave it out there. So look, I teach private lending. I've done private lending. I've been a mortgage broker for 15 years doing private loans. But as a real estate investor, we can do better.
Brandon from North Carolina, what's the minimum equity you'll accept when agreeing on a purchase price with the seller for a lease option deal?
Don't look at it that way, Brandon. It depends on all the other things. Is it a nice house in a nice neighborhood in excellent condition? It looks like it's going to be easy to put a tenant buyer in it. I'm always going to have some equity, but I'm not going to name a number because it doesn't apply. If I like everything else, and most of them I'm not going by because there's something else wrong other than the payment. But that's a whole business within the business out there, and I've just recorded a webinar to that effect, so look for it. A business within the business is what I called it. So I want some equity. I'm just not going to pay top retail price. That's not the manly thing to do. Macho man, I want some equity in it.
All right, second question from Brandon. Should I contact an attorney between the time of an appointment is set or after the appointment?
You don't need an attorney till you get in the house and make sure you got a deal. When you come out of there with a lease option agreement signed, you really don't have any escrow, but you want to get the attorney involved because somebody's got to check the title. And I want the attorney to go back to the seller and get all the disclosures and disclaimers that they want signed, including your CYA letter for the sellers, just so the seller knows there's an attorney involved. And then again, I'll use the attorney when I install a tenant buyer. But remember this, when I walk out of the house with a lease option agreement signed, there is no escrow. We're done. I'm closed. All right. Unlike when I buy a house, I have to set it up for an escrow. So I still don't know if the title's good. Do we have it checked, even though I got the agreement in my hand signed? So if it's a lease option, there is no escrow, therefore there is no deposit. There is no place on the agreement to put a deposit, like there is on a purchase and sale agreement. So I hope that answers that question.
All right, last one from Brandon. What are the deal killers you look for during a property walkthrough on a lease option?
Needing repairs of any major degree. I mean, I don't mind having the carpet cleaned, stuff like that, but I'm not going to do any repairs that cost several $1,000s on a house I don't own. I learned that lesson way back the hard way. We don't fix houses we don't own, okay? When we lease option them, we don't own them. So in my case, I'm always gonna go for the deed most of the time. So it's not an issue for me. If it needs a little something, I'll get it fixed. But on a lease purchase, I'm very, very cautious not to spend my money on the seller's house. So either they gotta fix whatever it needs to get it showable and ready to go, or they gotta give me such a deal that I don't mind spending the money on it. But even then, I'm gonna tell them if I fix your house, I'm gonna have to own your house.
All right, Dr. Larry from Texas, what's the process for transferring properties from one LLC to another?
Well, doctor, first I'd have to ask you why you're doing that, because it's unlikely that there's a reason for doing it that makes sense. And you gotta be careful that you don't trigger a tax event now. If you're gonna do that, you better check with your CPA. But if it's titled in an LLC, you merely mean you want to transfer it from an LLC to a land trust, and then have the LLC be the beneficial interest of the land trust. That's what you meant to ask, right, Doc? Yep. Okay. I don't see any reason to transfer it from one to the other. Now, let's say if I buy it in a land trust, all I got to do is change the beneficial interest, and nothing changes downtown. There's no closing costs whatsoever. Just got to report that to my CPA with the end of the year books. But I assume you bought it in an LLC, and now you want to put it in another LLC. You'd have to ask me why. I'd have to ask you, why are you doing that, before I could go any further on that. But I think you better probably rethink it.
All right, Joseph from Indiana. Do contracts and purchase and sale agreements need to be printed in a specific size or format?
No.
No? Okay.
Because you're not recording them. If you're recording them, and they need to be printed probably on an 8.5 by 11. Most courthouses that I know won't take them 8.5 by 14. And don't put anything on the back. So in other words, you've got to print everything. You know, what would normally take one page front and back is 2 pages now, such as the warranty deed to trustee. Most of them won't take anything if it's on the back. And it's all got to have, anytime you record something, it's got to be notarized and have at least one witness.
All right, Sandra from New Mexico. When setting the option price with the seller, how far out do you typically set the term? And how do you decide what appreciation to build in for your tenant buyer?
My tenant buyer doesn't get any appreciation, okay? Their purchase price is fixed. I get the appreciation if they don't buy. I just lease it again at a higher price, most likely. So appreciation is irrelevant as far as your tenant buyer. Term for the tenant buyer is 2 years. For the seller, it's as long as I can get.
All right, I think that's all of our questions for today.
Guys, look out for my new training on the business within the business. You should be getting an email on it. If you haven't, check with us. That's coming up. It's free. And we got several things coming up here, so keep an eye on what we send you, and at least open it before you delete it. You never know when it's going to be a very important message to you. Okay? See you next week.